They do not understand you, and they never fully have. Not the people closest to you, not the ones who love you most, not even the ones who have known you longest. There's something about the way you see the world, the way you process things, the way you move through life with a depth and a knowing that most people around you simply cannot follow. You have spent years trying to make yourself understood, trying to translate yourself into a language that fits more comfortably into the spaces you inhabit, trying to explain the things you feel so they land without making people uncomfortable. And it has never quite worked. And you've been wondering, is something wrong with me? Why can nobody fully understand me? Why do I always feel like I'm speaking a language that nobody around me fully speaks? Stay with me for the next few minutes, because the answer to that question is going to change everything about how you see yourself. The misunderstanding is not new. It's been with you for as long as you can remember. Maybe it started in childhood, when you asked questions that made adults uncomfortable, when you felt things so deeply that it worried the people around you. You were told you were too sensitive, too serious, too intense, too much, that you needed to lighten up, and God knows you tried. But the depth was not something you could turn off. It was not a mood, or a choice, or a phase. It was and is the most fundamental thing about you. I need to tell you something about that glass wall between you and the world. It was never a sign that you were defective. It was always a sign that you were different. Not wrong different, called different. And called people are almost always misunderstood, because they are operating from a frequency that most people around them have not yet accessed. Let me explain exactly why chosen people are always misunderstood. I want to be specific, because you deserve more. The same perceptual access to the information you are drawing on. You are working with data they cannot see, and conclusions drawn from invisible data always look like guessing or overthinking to the people who cannot see the data. The second reason is that you are ahead of where the people around you currently are. This is perhaps the most important reason. The chosen one is almost always ahead, not in an arrogant sense, but in the sense of being at a different point in the journey. You have arrived at understandings that the people around you are still moving toward. And it is very difficult to be understood by people who have not yet arrived where you are. They genuinely cannot see from a vantage point they have not yet reached. The third reason is that your purpose requires you to be different. If you are fully understood, if you fit seamlessly into the consensus reality, you would not be able to do what you are called to do. Full social belonging, the kind that comes from being completely understood and accepted by the mainstream, always comes at the cost of conformity. You see, you cannot be fully understood by the crowd and fully yourself at the same time. Not at this stage of your journey, and God knew that. The misunderstanding was built into the calling, not as a punishment, but as a protection of your ability to see clearly, of your willingness to say what is true rather than what is accepted, of your capacity to go where the crowd is not yet ready to follow. Let me name the specific ways the misunderstanding shows up in your life, because naming them matters. The misunderstanding of your sensitivity. The people around you see your sensitivity as fragility, as a weakness, something to be managed or apologized for. What they cannot see is that your sensitivity is not fragility, it is perception. The same nervous system that makes you feel pain more acutely makes you see more clearly. The same depth of feeling that makes you cry at things others walk past, makes you capable of a quality of love and empathy that most people will spend their whole lives searching for. Your sensitivity is not your weakness, it is one of your greatest strengths. The misunderstanding of your intensity. They call it too much, too serious, too deep. What they cannot see is that your intensity is not a personality flaw. It is a signal of how seriously you take what matters. It is the evidence of a person who is fully alive to the reality of what is happening around them. It is the natural response of someone who is awake in a world where most people are still sleeping. The misunderstanding of your direction. When you follow the pull of your calling, when you make decisions based on an internal knowing that defies conventional logic, the people around you often cannot follow the reasoning, because the reasoning is not primarily rational, it is spiritual. It is based on a sense of direction that comes from a level of knowing that most people have not yet developed. Decisions that look from the outside like risk or foolishness are almost impossible to explain to people who have not felt the pull that drives them. The misunderstanding of your direction is the loneliest form of the misunderstanding. It requires the most courage to move through. But you are not the first chosen one to be misunderstood. Not by a long way. Think about Noah, called to build an ark for a flood in a world that had never seen rain. Can you imagine the misunderstanding? The ridicule, the dismissal, the absolute certainty of everyone watching him that he had completely lost his mind. And yet, he kept building, not because he had convinced everyone around him, but because the knowing inside him was stronger than the misunderstanding outside him. Think about Joseph, who told his brothers about his dreams and was thrown into a pit for it. The misunderstanding of Joseph was not passive, it was violent. It cost him his freedom and years of his life. And yet the vision was real. The misunderstanding did not change the outcome, because the calling does not require everyone around you to understand it. It only requires you to. Think about Jesus himself, misunderstood by his family, his community, and his own disciples. The one who came to save the world was consistently misunderstood by the world he came to save, and he kept going anyway. Not because the misunderstanding did not hurt, but because the mission was bigger than the misunderstanding. Your mission is bigger than your misunderstanding too. The misunderstanding is not going away entirely, at least not in this season. But here's how to live with it without letting it diminish you. First, stop requiring understanding before you move. The chosen one, who waits for everyone around them to understand before they take the next step, will never take the next step. Because the understanding almost never comes before the movement. It comes after. When the vision has materialized enough for other people to see what you are seeing all along. Move first. Let the understanding catch up. Second, find the one or two who do understand. You do not need everyone to understand. You need one or two, the people who speak your language, who meet you in the depth without asking you to come up to the surface. These people exist. They are rarer than you would like, but they exist. And finding them is worth more than the approval of 100 people who will never quite get it. Third, let the misunderstanding fuel the work. Every artist, visionary, leader, and prophet who changed the world was misunderstood, and the misunderstanding did not stop the work. For many of them, it fueled it. The determination to build what others could not yet see. Let the misunderstanding push you toward the creation that will eventually make the explanation unnecessary, because the greatest response to being misunderstood is always to build the thing that makes your vision undeniable. Fourth, know that the misunderstanding is temporary. The people who misunderstand you today are often the people who will most clearly see and most deeply honor what you built tomorrow. The misunderstanding is a season, not a sentence, and the season is already ending. You have been misunderstood your entire life, and it has cost you, in relationships, in confidence. But I need you to hear this clearly. The misunderstanding was never evidence that you were wrong. It was evidence that you were early to the understanding, early to the awareness, early to the level of depth that the people around you are still moving toward. You were misunderstood because you were ahead, and the world always misunderstands what it has not yet caught up to. Keep going, chosen one. Build the vision, express the calling, because the day is coming when what was misunderstood becomes undeniable. And on that day, the misunderstanding will finally make sense, not as a wound, but as the price you paid to stay true to something real, and it will have been worth every moment of it. If this finally explains something you have been feeling your whole life, please share it with someone who needs to know that being misunderstood is a sign of being called, not a sign of being broken. Subscribe to Sacred Chosen Journey for weekly messages made specifically for you. And drop a DOP in the comments if you have spent your life feeling misunderstood by the people around you. Let us know you're staying true to the vision.